Good afternoon, everyone. I will call to order this committee meeting of the Minnesota Senate Energy Committee. Today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, and we do have a quorum present. Thank you, members, for being here. It's my honor to be here working with all of you on some important issues for the state of Minnesota. We've got some bills on the agenda for today. The first bill that we're going to hear is from Senator Eichorn with Senate File 426. So when you are ready, Senator Eichorn, take it away.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to hear Senate File 426. I would like to thank my co-sponsors, Senator Barr, yourself, Mr. Chair, and Senator Hoffman. Senate File 426 seeks to lift the capacity threshold for the hydroelectric to count as an eligible technology in compliance with Minnesota's energy goals. Municipalities, power districts, cooperatives in Minnesota all purchase allocations from baseload capacity hydroelectric dams located across America. Hydroelectric power is widely considered carbon-free, renewable energy, regardless of the size of the station. And with our clean by 100% carbon-free by 2040 goals, we need to access all available technologies that all of the above approach in order to get to that lofty goal within the next 15 years. Large hydro is a vital part of the state's clean energy transition and gives us the ability to provide reliable, flexible, baseload power generation. It's both reliable, flexible. Currently today in the state, there's over 30 hydropower sites. They're smaller, but they do vary in size. I actually have a few of those in my district. One is operated by a paper company, and one's operated in the Brainerd area by their utilities. Very interesting facilities. If you've never had a chance to look at one, it's very neat to see how they operate. Simplistic in a lot of ways, but also provide a lot of power for the communities that have them. And I think it's a very unique opportunity with all of our water resources we have in this state, that this is something we definitely should be doing and to include it in that all of the above approach. So with that, Mr. Chair, I know there's a few folks that would like to speak to the bill. If we could have them come up. That is the quick run through. It's a pretty short bill, just the few lines that you see in the text there. So if there are any other questions, I would certainly be here for those as soon as the testifiers have completed.
All right, thank you, Senator Eichorn. We'll do our testifiers first, and then we can have any questions from members of the testifiers or the author at the end of it. So first we'll invite Deb Bergen from Missouri River. Thanks for coming up. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record and then proceed.
Yes, thank you, Senator Mathews. My name is Deb Bergen. I'm with Missouri River Energy Services. Members of the committee, I come in support of SF 426 today, which removes the hydropower cap as renewable energy, or rather under the definition of an eligible energy technology under Minnesota law. First, I would like to note that Missouri River Energy, MRES, as we're often called, our members receive an allocation of hydropower from the 6 federal dams of the Missouri River. When you think about it, this is the ultimate in renewable. The same water beginning in western Montana flows through each of those 6 dams, generating at each one. The capacity of the Missouri River dams is just over 2,400 megawatts of power. Hydropower is not only clean and renewable, it is flexible. Unlike intermittent forms of generation, hydropower has the flexibility to allow for load following. According to the National Hydropower Association, there are over 86,300 megawatts of hydropower in development. Included in this is 67 new proposed pumped storage hydropower projects across 21 states. This represents approximately 50 gigawatts of new storage capacity. Also, the U.S. Department of Energy studies show that existing non-powered dams in the U.S. have the potential to generate an additional 12,000 megawatts of power. In fact, in 2024, the Department of Energy awarded $76 million for new hydro project development. I would also note that most recently, Manitoba Hydro expanded capacity with the 695 megawatt, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Kiosk generating station, which was completed in 2022. In 2023, when the renewable energy bill was first introduced, it did not allow for any new hydro, but then it was amended to allow for new hydro if it's 100 megawatts or less. But we would assert that it's time to remove this limitation. Hydropower is important, and we should make use of the generation to provide reliability to the grid, reduce emissions, and meet clean and renewable energy goals and mandates. Therefore, MRES urges the adoption of SF 426. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bergen. Next testifier is Zach Martin from Minnesota Power. Welcome to the committee. Thank you. Please identify yourself and then feel free to begin.
Sure thing. Good afternoon, Co-Chair Mathews, Co-Chair Frentz, members of the committee. I'm Zach Martin, Government Affairs Manager at Elite Minnesota Power. So thank you, Senator Eichorn, for introducing bipartisan legislation in Senate File 426, and to the committee for holding important discussions today on a range of energy technologies. Hydropower has always been a uniquely important energy resource for Minnesota Power. In fact, our utility started generating electricity back in 1906 from hydropower harnessed by the St. Louis River near Duluth. Today, we operate the largest hydroelectric system in the state with 11 stations producing more than 120 megawatts of electricity along 5 rivers in central and northeastern Minnesota. We are thankful also to the host communities that provide a home to these important hydropower facilities. We also have a standing purchase power agreement with Manitoba Hydro, which Ms. Bergen mentioned earlier, where we bring 250 megawatts per year of carbon-free hydropower to our customers through the Great Northern Transmission Line, which crosses into from Manitoba down to the United States over to our system. Hydropower is a key energy resource as we develop our system towards a carbon-free future while keeping reliability and affordability at the forefront. So today's bill builds upon this important energy resource, which we've been operating and maintaining for more than a century. Our utility planners are working every day to find the best path towards 100% carbon-free by 2040, and this legislation provides another important tool in our toolbox for meeting those requirements. So for those reasons, we'd urge members to support the bill, and thank you again, Senator Eichorn, for bringing it up today. Sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. Is there anyone else in the audience that wanted to come and provide some brief testimony on this bill? Feel free to come on forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and then feel free to begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Mathews, Chair Frentz, and committee members, my name is Rachel Stuckey, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Conservative Energy Forum. We are an all-of-the-above nonprofit that promotes a market-based, all-of-the-above energy solution for Minnesota. As our state works to achieve the 100% carbon-free by 2040 mandate and ensure reliable, affordable electricity while transitioning to clean energy sources, we need to thoughtfully consider all available options. Hydroelectric power represents a proven, dependable source of carbon-free baseload generation that can help meet our growing power needs while supporting grid stability, and this bill would allow us to do so. Today, modern hydroelectric facilities of all sizes use advanced technologies to safely generate significant amounts of carbon-free power. This bill would permit any hydroelectric facility, regardless of size or operational date, to qualify as a carbon-free technology under state statute, allowing them to contribute to our clean energy goals while maintaining environmental standards. Removing date and size restrictions would enable all facilities to count toward the carbon-free requirements and would allow for advances in our power infrastructure, whether building new state-of-the-art facilities or granting existing facilities the ability to upgrade equipment and increase generation. This would provide more carbon-free baseload power to complement intermittent renewable sources like wind and solar. And as we work to build a reliable, affordable, and clean energy system, we should ensure our policies enable rather than restrict proven technologies that can help meet our goals. We encourage you to advance Senate File 426 to unlock additional clean power generation, and thank you to Senator Eichorn for bringing this forward.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony. Anyone else that's in the audience? All right, seeing none, we'll then turn to any members that wish to make comments or questions about the bill. Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, can I ask what the plan is for the bill? Or are we going to vote on it? Is it going to be held over?
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Senate File 426, I believe Senator Eichorn's intent is to move it to be recommended to pass and referred to the Senate floor. Is that correct, Senator Eichorn?
Whatever you would like to do, Mr. Chair, I'm fine either way. If you want to hold it over and send it on, again, that would be your prerogative, but certainly open to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
McEwen.
Thank you. So particularly because of learning what the proposed path of this bill would be, I have a lot of questions about this. I'm wondering, so this is not just about hydroelectric power, right? I mean, we're receiving hydroelectric power from a number of sources, previously built sources, smaller sources. So I'm looking at the content of the bill and I'm seeing what this change proposes is to erase what counts as eligible energy technology for the purpose of renewable energy sources, what we're counting as renewable energy. And as, you know, when I was coming up and going to college in the late 90s, there was a lot of talk about the damage that large-scale dams were doing to fisheries, were doing to our water supplies in various rivers around the world at that time. And that was when the discussion was really starting to rev up around decommissioning some of the dams around the country. So this is, I'm interested to find out why take out the language with a capacity of less than 100 megawatts. So right now, if a hydroelectric dam produces less than 100 megawatts, it can count as an eligible energy technology. But if it is, if a new dam that would be over 100 megawatts or more, that couldn't count. That's the current line. What you're proposing is to take away that language. And so just to open the floodgates, as you will, if you will, to all hydroelectric. So I'm kind of wondering, because we didn't hear a lot of testimony about what the proposed projects are. I know that our friends at Minnesota Power up north receive a large amount of hydroelectric from the Manitoba dam up in Canada. And I looked at some of the wattages that we were receiving on the St. Louis River dams. They're very small. Thompson looks like maybe the largest at 70 megawatts, so that already counts. Fond du Lac at 12, Scanlon at 1.6. So I'm not getting the kind of information that tells me what this is really all about. And I'm just wondering, why do we need to get rid of this language? That question hasn't been answered to me by any of the testimony that I've heard, and I'm wondering if you can address that, or if any of the speakers could. Thanks.
They can certainly come up as well if they would like. I don't know if there's
Senator Eichorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's any projects in the pipeline, but it could certainly open it up for a project to be in the pipeline. And I will say that regardless of the type of energy we're doing, there are downsides to all of them. There's upsides to all of them. You know, you think of the, you know, wind kills with windmills, the bird kills that you see with migrating birds. With solar, there's effects on nesting birds and small games and native plants. With coal, there's concerns. With any kind of energy, there's ups and downs to it. I will say at the facility I toured this summer, which is in the Brainerd area, they go through great lengths to decrease risks to the fish populations. And it's actually pretty amazing. You know, when you go look at different types of energy production, you can look at a coal-fired power plant and say, well, that looks kind of ugly. You can look at a wind farm and say, that looks kind of ugly, or a solar field. But you look at some of the hydro facilities that are out there, at least the ones I've toured that are in my district, and they do a pretty good job blending those into the environment. And it's not the big eyesore that some of the others are. So I think that's great as well, that those facilities do blend into their environment. But as far as the question of proposed projects, I'm not aware of any. Maybe some of the folks that testified maybe think about that in their pipeline, or maybe would if this cap went away. That's something they could maybe answer if you want them to come up and do so. but it at least gives us the option. I would like us to have all the tools in our toolbox. If we're going to get to that goal by 2040, I do think this is just a small piece of that puzzle.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that response. Senator, but for example, I'm wondering the hydroelectric dam that you toured, I'm wondering how many watts was it producing?
I don't
Senator
remember off the
Eichorn.
top of my, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a pretty decent sized one. And part of the reason we toured it is they're going to be looking for some of our help to replace some of the generation that's there. It's an older facility, and I think they would like to add generation. And if they were going to add generation that could go above that 100, it might help them. I don't know if that's their plan to go above 100 at this point, but it would give them the option to do so. This isn't specifically about that facility. It's about all facilities that are interested in this.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just again, like, if we're going to bring this bill to the floor, I feel like I do need more information about what this is really about, because it seems to me that the smaller dams that are in operation throughout our state are already being counted as eligible energy technology for the purposes of our laws. So I really, and I agree, you're correct. Every type of energy has its pluses and minuses. Some of them are eyesores, some of them, we think they're beautiful, whatever. We can debate all of that. But that seems to be beside the point, because what this particular piece of legislation would do is open up larger dams into what we're counting as renewable energy. And in an era where we have actually gone full circle around talking about the pros and cons of some of these larger dams, I'm not comfortable without knowing what would actually be the reason that we would do this. Is there some compelling project that would be on I don't even know, which river are we talking about? Mississippi, Red River, St. Louis River? Like, I don't even know what we'd be doing if we passed this. So I would just ask for more information. Thanks.
And Mr. Chair,
Senator Eichorn.
certainly willing to work with you as this moves through the process, regardless of what the path is, to help answer some of those questions for you. And I'm sure some of the folks that are in the industry are more than happy to do so as well.
Good questions, Senator McEwen, and I think a theme you're going to see for the whole day today is not that we're coming with already projects that are in a queue, but it's opening the toolbox, because right now our state law limits what can even be proposed to the Public Utilities Commission or go through the certificates of need or go through all of these steps. So the options are limited to begin with. And we're just saying, hey, with the future that we have before us, we've got all the options available. They still have to go through all the same safety standards and procedures that everything else does. So that's the overall theme for today, if you could name a theme. Next on the growing list is Co-Chair Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Eichorn. This is one of the bills you brought forward in our 9 years together that I think I can support the strongest.
I've got one extra spot on the bill if you want on.
We can talk. I think to that point, I'm hearing that you're saying you're open to laying it over, you're open to passing it. I certainly think, Mr. Chair, that the better path is to lay it over. That would be my vote at this point. I'm concerned if we put a vote up that it doesn't pass out of committee, now we have a Senate position. Having said that, a couple compliments. Ready? Nobody testified against this bill. This has been posted. There are environmental concerns, Senator McEwen, and I share your concerns. I think the eligible energy is a definition of what is and is not carbon-free. And as the chief author of the 100% bill, I was asked, well, is there something about a 105 megawatt hydroelectric project, which is not carbon-free, but a 95 is? So I think you win the ideological argument, Senator Eichorn. I also think this has got to have a little more conversation and probably belongs in the Environment Committee at some point as well, since the concerns about hydro have to do with land use and some of the environmental concerns. But at the end of the day, this bill is about defining eligible energy, and hydroelectric is already eligible, and an artificial designation of size seems to not fit if we believe we're pursuing this with all the tools in the toolbox. So, Mr. Chair, I'd ask that we consider laying the bill over, and happy to hear more thoughts on it. And I believe you'll be earning my support. Signing on is probably a different conversation. Thank you, Senator Eichorn, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for bringing this bill, Senator Eichorn. I think it's an important conversation we need to be having about all of the different options that need to be on the table. Like Senator McEwen, I have some questions about what the impact would be of a larger dam like that, a new larger dam. What even is the cost of something like that? What is the environmental impact, especially considering most of the sort of most accessible and most viable sites around the state already have hydro at them. And so if we'd be looking for a new place, I'm guessing it would have a larger environmental impact, and I'd be interested in sort of where are the options? What would that look like, and what would the cost be? I would very much like to have more conversation on this bill, because I do think all options need to be on the table at this point to get ourselves to 100%. But it would be my suggestion, like Chair Frentz, that either we lay it over or we vote to send it to Environment so that that conversation can continue. I would be much more comfortable if it was going there to have that conversation. But other than that, I think just more specifics about what the cost would be for something of this size, what the environmental impact would be in the sort of new places that you could put a dam of this size, I would need to know before certainly voting to pass it to the floor.
Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you, Senator Eichorn, for bringing this forward. When I was on the Energy Committee in the House, I authored this bill, similar one to take the cap off. You know, one of the things to understand, and I think it has to go through, even if we take the cap off, it has to go through a whole permitting process, which Chair Mathews talked about. The other thing is that we have to understand that technology solves our pollution problems. You know, we've had discussions about nuclear and the spent fuel rods and how we can recycle now. The technology's there, 95%. So the point is that all we're doing here is lifting the cap. You still have to go through a whole process before you provide any type of actual building of a dam that generates more than 100 megawatts. You know, one of the things in terms of the pollution, I happen to have a customer I was just out to last Friday, farmer, and his neighbors allowed windmills to be put on their property, on their nice farmland. And two of the windmills, according to my farmer, he did not, by the way, he refused to do it, but according to my farmer, two of the windmills went kaput. And the people came in and took down the windmill, but they said it's too expensive to remove the big cement base. So now he has two bases in the middle of his farm fields that haven't been removed. Now maybe he can have some options, might have to seek help from a lawyer or something, but basically they took down the windmill and they left the big base in the middle of his farm. And my customer, which was the farmer, he just said, this is disgusting, the way they leave that. So again, every form of energy has negatives, and I think this is a well-experienced form of energy. And again, I think, you know, the fish, other types of consequences, we have to believe in modern technology, like it has so many times in our lives, solves our problems. So thank you for bringing this forward. I actually would like to see it to go forward to the House, to the Senate floor. And,
Please don't make it go to the House. I don't want to go over there.
Sorry, that was just a misstep.
Little faux pas, that's okay.
I'm going to rule that one out of order, Senator Hoffman. Thank you, Senator Gruenhagen. Senator Greskowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Eichorn, for bringing this bill. Contrary to what you may have been led to believe earlier, I've seen this bill in some form since I've been in the legislature in 2007. 2007 to now, members, this has been before us every single session. Now, We have in policy, government is saying no. They're saying no to all our regulators, the ones you guys have been talking about. They're saying no to the Public Utilities Commission. You can't consider a new project. Government policy saying no to the environmental process. You can't even judge this project in the face of its environmental merits or demerits. You can't do it because we have policy that says no. If you're a potential developer and you want to develop energy to meet all of our very, very rigorous big government regulations that we have for these projects, if you want to even try to go in there, this policy says you can't do it. Don't even think about it. You can't even open the door. Members, this will open the door to allow all those agencies to provide their relative scrutiny in the process to help us finally find some additional energy to meet the very onerous, sorry, Senator, onerous goals that were placed out with the bill in 2003. And if we don't do that, we're on a crash course with reality here, members. We had discussions about the data centers, and maybe the natures of those are going to change since what we heard is going on the other side of the world, but there's going to be need for much more energy in our state, and that need and the public desire for it is on a crash course with our policy in this state. If we don't open up and allow some ability for a pressure release valve in being the form of additional energy developing, it's not going to be good. The blackout bill is going to become a blackout bill, Senator, if we don't do this. If we don't do this and some of the other things that are proposed here. So members, let's just have an honest conversation about where we're going and try to not bring forward discussion around hyperbole, but the reality is this has been before us a long time. We've been considering it. The realities of the forces out there are telling us it's time to act and remove the no that's a roadblock in front of our industry, in front of our government, and in front of our future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everything's been said, but not everyone has said it. So I'll just add my part.
Funny, I always forget that quote. That's pretty
I come from the House, so you know. So just to second the request that perhaps we keep this discussion here in this committee a little bit longer. This is a fairly substantial step in state energy policy with a lot of questions that still need to be asked and answered in discussion. I'm not reflexively opposed to this idea, but you know, I've been around this discussion for quite a while. Maybe, you know, things have changed, the world has changed, but there was a reason why we kept large hydro out of the RES. You know, maybe we need to refresh ourselves as to the reason why. There's always big questions when utilities are stepping forward. They want to build gigantic things. They make a ton of money from capital assets. And so what is the implication to ratepayers? What is the implication to the bottom line for utilities? What is the implication to other forms of renewable energy development, whether that's small scale or, you know, medium scale? What is the implication? You know, we're talking about the Missouri River, sending money perhaps out of state. You know, part of the idea of the renewable energy standard was generate all of those multiplier effects for the potential for Minnesota's own economy in energy generation locally and not shipping it out. So there's just a lot of questions we have about counting large-scale hydro in the renewable energy standard. I hate to perhaps have a different perspective than Senator Drazkowski. We're not, you know, folks can build large-scale hydro. It's just whether or not we're counting it towards the RES standard or not. So I just think there's more questions, and if we could just continue to have this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. We have had this bill posted for a week since it was announced last Wednesday. Also to have just put out with the discussion, I've checked with council here. We've not had any other committee that's made a request for this bill in the week that it's been posted. And we're here right now having this conversation, and I appreciate all the members that have been doing that. Next on the list is Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do believe we should be passing this on to the Senate floor. If another chair wishes to hear it after that, it could be called for a re-referral. But again, as Senator Drazkowski mentioned, we've had this bill in front of us as long as I've been in the legislature and long before. When it was put into statute, we didn't have the 2040 bill in front of, as part of state law. So to say that somebody could build this type of facility without it being counted in their RES, there isn't anyone who would even consider this at that point, considering we have the 2040 bill as the law of the land right now. And if we are going to meet the standards of that bill, we absolutely have to be having in front of us and our utilities every option that they believe they need in order to make those standards. And the thing that we have to consider for our utilities is if we wait another 5 years to pass this, they don't make their plans 6 months or 12 months or 24 months out. They have 10-year and 20-year plans that they have to address to meet their future needs. And the longer we take to give them the opportunities to have the carbon-free emissions onto their system, the harder and more expensive it is going to be to meet the standards that they have to meet by 2040. Does this mean a dam, a large hydro dam is going in tomorrow somewhere? Absolutely not. What it does do for our utilities is it gives them an opportunity to look at what their generation needs are going to be, and it gives them an ability to look and plan and have more options available to them so that they can meet that standard that so many of us agree that we need to be cleaner, affordable, and reliable with our energy future. And the more we restrict what we can have, the more difficult that is. And I want to address one of the letters that is in our packet that mentioned that this hydro cannot be considered clean. If we're going to acknowledge that, you know, because there's concrete and shipping of that and construction involved that would make hydro not clean, then we would have to put that same standard to every other form, and we would have 0 types of generation that would count as clean. Because everything has some form of emissions when you come to the mining of the resources, processing of the resources, transportation of the resources, manufacturing of the products, and then again, shipping products to their end location. So those are all the things that we have to understand are part of the whole picture. And so this one makes sense. I believe we should be sending it to the floor because we have had these discussions for so many years. And when we look at what is happening over in the body that was mentioned earlier, I think having options to our Senate floor that we can act on is in our best interest as a Senate body. And just because we pass it to the floor doesn't mean it's not still available to be discussed here and included in a future bill here from this committee as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rarick. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems that there are some on the committee that would like to see the specific plans for a new facility, a hydroelectric facility. And yet the reality of it is, Mr. Chair and members, that quite frankly, I don't believe any company is going to come to us with specific plans. It's not this committee that will ever approve siting. It's not this committee that will ever approve plans and specs and grant the permit. We have a process within the state for that to happen already. And as you look at the costs that will be necessary to develop the plans, why would any utility spend the money knowing right off the bat that our law doesn't allow for it in the first place? So in order for us to develop that, to know what those costs are, to know what the issues are, to know where it might be able to be located, we need to change our legislation to allow those type of things, that type of planning to go forward. As Senator Rarick said, they don't plan 12 months ahead. They plan 12 years or 20 years or even more years ahead. And to be honest about it, members, with the permitting process in this state, who knows when a permit could actually be issued for this to happen. But we are never going to know the answer to the questions that were raised here unless we take the first step and approve this bill. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if Senator Eichorn has any information about the permitting process, but for something like this, but I'd like to hear if he does.
Senator Eichorn.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator Weber. I don't specifically, but I know that if somebody wanted to build out a project like this, I assume they're going to have to hear from several government agencies from the state level, probably both DNR and Pollution Control Agency. They're probably going to have to deal with federal agencies as well. So there already is in place a lot of checks and balances should somebody propose one of these projects. Again, I'm not aware of a project that is going to be proposed, but it just gives that opportunity for folks to do this if they want to do it. Right now, it doesn't make sense, but it'll open it up to possibly make sense if we're going to get there.
Senator Weber?
And I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Weber just said just about everything I was going to say. The only thing that I would point out one more time is that there was no opposition to this bill. And if the agencies who are in charge of permitting, which we know are very extensive when it comes to these kind of projects, if they had a concern that there was going to be a problem, I think we had heard from them. And I too would like to see this move to the floor as soon as possible, because in my area, there's a lot of worry, consternation about what's coming at us in the next few years. Our rural electric companies are starting to send out notices now. Our electric bills have already gone up just on the anticipation of what's kind of coming at us. So we need to look at these things, and we need to look at them now. And this is the first step. This isn't the last step. So I hope we can move this on.
Co-Chair Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I am asking you, Mr. Co-Chair, to lay this over, and I want to share with members why I think that's the better plan. We're not simply debating the merits of the bill, which I'm close to signing on to. That's what I think of the merits of the bill. We're debating the process of the Senate Energy Committee, the question of whether bills stand alone or become part of an omnibus, and have we had the fullest discussion. I agree with Senator Rarick. These projects take many years to permit, which begs the question, we got to do it today, we can't wait 2 weeks. And I think the smarter path would be to lay it over, to give the Energy Committee the flexibility to decide, does it go to the floor as a standalone? Does it become part of an omnibus? And I'm asking members to vote no if there is a motion to send it to the floor on that basis. Senator Eichorn, you have my pledge, not only to continue pointing out that there was no opposition and that the designation of 100 megawatts is artificial, but that I'm open to signing on to the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Co-Chair Frentz, we've had this posted for a week. What efforts have you made so far in the last week on that bill? Because this has been out there for this very purpose, for this committee to decide and consider to advance legislation.
Thanks, Mr. Co-Chair. Are you asking who's contacted me about the bill?
No, I'm saying the progress on the question that you just posed to me could have been also accomplished in this last week, as opposed to the next 2 weeks as you just threw out.
Well, first of all, Mr. Co-Chair, this is your day and you're the chair, and I respect the choices that you make, and I respect the votes that members of the committee choose to make. What I'm saying is the flexibility of not sending it to the floor is a preferred alternative without more conversation. I'm thinking of Senator McEwen, who I think wants to make a few calls. I'm also not sure that it is better as a standalone. And when we discussed this last week, I said I did not think the best move was to move these 3 bills forward, but to lay them over, which I think is the smarter and more flexible plan. But I will respect your choice as the chair. I will respect the votes of the committee members, and we'll have lots of discussion on a lot of issues. And Senator Eichorn, my best guess is you'll see this become law this session. In what form, though, I don't know, and I don't know that the Senate Energy Committee wants to give up that flexibility. I think the smarter move is to hang on to it. And I note that we did receive apparently a request during this hearing showing that the entire world is watching us from the Senate Energy Committee CA for a request or re-referral. So I also think one of the questions we have here, members, is now the Chair of Senate Environment has asked to hear it. There is little question in my mind it has to go to Environment. I think the smarter move is to keep it here in Energy. But again, respect the chair, respect the members, and thank you very much.
So Co-Chair Frentz, one of the co-chairs of Environment happens to be at the testifier table. So I would like to ask the co-chair of the Environment Committee if you've got any comment about the request that literally came in a couple of minutes ago.
Well, Mr. Chair, I can tell you I did not make that request. I assume that means it was Senator Hur that made that request. I think, again, all of the environmental protections are already in place. To me, this is more of an energy issue than it is an environment issue. The environment issue is taken care of on the other side of it. I don't personally believe there's a need to send it to environment. The way our agreement works is Senator Hur and I would have to agree to that. He hasn't had that conversation with me. He hasn't reached out to me. If you did pass it out of this committee and sent it to the floor, I would have that conversation with him if he wants it re-referred at that point. But again, whatever path your committee chooses to take, I will certainly respect that, but I don't believe there's a need to send it to environment at this time.
All right, list is growing again. I think Senator Rarick raised your hand. You raised your hand again? Senator Rarick.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, I would just respectfully disagree with Senator Frentz. I think one of the things that has happened over my time here is that chief authors have lost the ability to have say in their bills because everything gets laid on the or laid over for possible inclusion. Chairs of committees can still include bills in their omnibus bill even if they've been passed to the floor. I think the proper thing that we should be doing for more of our members when they're carrying bills is sending them on to general orders so that they can be heard standalone. We take it out of the hands of ourselves by continuing to fail to pass bills through and just lay them over. It is diminishing the strength of us as individual members and putting all of the power into a few chairs. I think the right thing to do is to pass this on to the Senate floor. And as Senator Eichorn mentioned, he and Senator Hur can then have the discussion to come to the agreement under our shared agreement right now as to whether it should go there or not.
Senator Hoffman.
Finally, you get the IBEW guy in the single subject conversation that comes up. It's interesting. I'm sitting here, and in the whole process, I think of Jerry Newton. Do you guys remember Jerry Newton? There's this little, Coon Rapids Dam. I want to call it actually the Brooklyn Park Dam because the Brooklyn, anyway, you can park for free on the Brooklyn Park side, but not on the Anoka County side. Because of this stipulation on the hydro side of it, there's only one bay that they're able to turn that. And years ago, Coon Rapids Dam was actually a hydro dam, right? We're talking years and years ago. And the whole process, I'm thinking, wouldn't it make sense, in order to elevate the amount of kilowatts that are coming from that large dam area? And it makes sense because it gets to where we want to go with our plans for 2040. There is an environmental impact. I didn't think about that, and I know, but you have enough members in environmental impact that have the same drive about saying, how would this look? I think it would make sense sticking to the single subject line, let it go one more place, and then send it either back to us or send it to the floor, but have that environmental conversation. That, to me, makes sense. Send it to the floor. We're going to be, there's going to be a lot of factoid, he said, she said giving. But I think has the chair there, I'm in that environmental committee, we can have that conversation. I know there's some other members too that absolutely want to see this happen. And I just am thinking, what would Jerry Newton say? He'd say, go have that second conversation and then deal with it. So I'm advocating, chairs, that I'm advocating in support of what our IBEW friend is saying about single subject line.
And with that, it makes sense for me. Let's have another conversation on it. Keep that single subject line, and whether you guys, it comes back here or it goes to the floor from environment, I think environment makes sense. It makes sense to me to have it come to your committee there.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I've already spoken. I'll be really quick. Again, I just want to say that if anyone is considering taking this to the floor, there are so many questions about this legislation that make it crystal clear to me that it is not ready. It is not ready to go to the floor. The testimony that we heard in the bill presentation had to do with a beautiful, sweet dam tour that you took. Someone told me how much it produces, like 3.2 megawatts. And that's lovely, that's great, but that is not even relevant to the bill that we're considering. I know that when I meet with our utilities, I'm gonna hear what's really going on here. Maybe there's a large scale dam and they wanna bring power from it and they want it to count towards this. I just wanna know. I just wanna know what's going on here. So it's definitely not ready for the floor. And it's a real disservice to the people of Minnesota to try to just ram this through when we don't even know what we're voting on. So I'm open to it as well, but I'm not ready to just change policy about large-scale hydroelectric dams that have nothing to do with the sweet little dams we have all over the state of Minnesota. We actually have to know what we're talking about when we're voting on something. So again, respectfully, I want more information. Thank you.
Senator Zhang.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quick also. Chair, we're both co-chairs. I would like to advocate that we move this on to environment. Yes, it has been posted for a week, but we did not know what pathway it was going to take. Water is a resource that is the most valuable here in the state of Minnesota. I thank you for bringing this bill. I think we all have an interest in looking for alternatives, but I think, from Senator Port had mentioned earlier that, all viable options in the state have been already taken. And from the MIT, it looks like it was an MIT report that where that research came from. So if there's going to be any new projects, it's going to bring big changes to the environment and the ecosystem here in Minnesota. And so I think I would strongly advocate for this to go to the Environment Committee. And I hope that the two chairs can confer and render us a decision that would be favorable. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Zhang. Any other members that wish to speak on the bill? Senator Eichorn, I'll turn to you for closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the discussion today. That was certainly more robust than I expected, but certainly welcomed as well. Just to a few of the points, I will say Senator Gruenhagen mentioned technology. Some of the dams I've seen are definitely older, and the technology has vastly changed. And that permitting, again, to protect the environment is still in place. It's the other piece that's important. We're not changing any environmental laws here. This is certainly, in my opinion, an energy-related discussion. And I will respect the prerogative, whatever the committee decides. If the committee does decide to send it to the floor and then Senator Herr wants to have that discussion with me, I'm certainly willing to have that discussion with him. At this point, I don't agree to send it to environment. I don't think it needs to be there, but I will commit to having that discussion with Senator Herr if you guys do send this bill to the floor. Otherwise, if you do lay it over, I'm certainly willing to consider conversations with any member of the committee that wants to do so. So again, I will respect that prerogative as well. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Thank you for the discussion. I think it's been very good, and thanks to the testifiers as well that came today to speak in support of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Eichorn. So you are telling me as one of the co-chairs for environment that you're not in agreement of the re-referral to environment at this time. Is that what your position is?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, but I am willing to have that conversation with Senator Herr if he truly wants to have that conversation.
All right. Senator Frentz.
Mr. Chair, do you want to recess for a couple of minutes and you and I to chat? I have a motion to bring, but happy to go offline if you want to talk. It seems like some members are suggesting that might be fruitful. It's up to you,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
I will call a brief recess of the committee to the call of the chair.
licensure area.
Energy Committee will come back to order. Senator Eichorn and I believe Senator Frentz wanted to make a couple comments about trying to figure out what the best pathway forward is. Who wants to go first? Senator Eichorn, you wanting to go first or Senator Frentz?
Senator Frentz can go first.
Senator Frentz, Co-Chair Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes it takes a few minutes for us to work through this. I am very pleased to report, first of all, that I'll be signing on to this bill later this afternoon, and that the people in this room and the members of this committee can count on my support and my vote for that bill going forward. As a part of that arrangement, I think Senator Eichorn is okay with us laying it over today. I do think the voices that say a little more conversation is better, is fine, but I think his point about the re-referral to environment is that it would take both chairs, and so it's not a true re-referral request at this moment. For that reason, Mr. Chair, I think the smart move is to allow me to sign on to the bill, pledge my support today and going forward to Senator Eichorn. If the committee would look favorably on laying it over, hopefully to consider whether it's better as part of an omnibus bill or a standalone. Does that sound about right, Senator Eichorn?
Senator Eichorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and based on what we talked about in the back, that's completely fine with me. I do appreciate your support of signing on to the bill. It gives us additional time to talk about it, and at the end of the day, my hope is that this ultimately ends up in some form or another and ultimately becomes law. That's the goal. So, and since we have your commitment to continue on that path, I'm comfortable laying it over and appreciate the conversation. So if that is the will of the committee, I'm completely fine to take that path.
All right, thank you, Senator Eichorn. Anyone else with a final comment before I make a final comment? All right, only comment that I'm going to make is, members, we've been working not just this bill, but all three bills on the calendar for the last week since this has been publicly posted. We're here to try to get some good work done for Minnesota. And I had commitments on these bills going forward, and a lot of political dynamics that were at play. And with the dynamics that are going on, the votes to get it out to the floor aren't there. And that's highly, highly disappointing to me because I operate with a much higher level of trust with our members, even as the minority lead in this committee. I was up front with Senator Frentz when I'd vote for a bill, when I wouldn't, what we were doing with all of that. Now, given all that's taken place, this is the next best option for us. And I do agree with Senator Frentz and Senator Eichorn. I'm glad for the commitments that you gave for this, glad that you'll be a co-author on this, and something that we need to see done this year from the Senate Energy Committee. So I do appreciate the discussion that we've had, and I guess the final decision is we're going to continue this discussion on Senate File 426. So with that, Senate File 426 is laid over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, for the opportunity to discuss this with you today.
Thank you, Senator Eichorn. I am going to have Senator Green, the co-vice chair of the committee, come forward for the next two bills together. So many cords.
Thank you, Senator Mathews. I was looking at the time and looking at our list of testifiers, which is extremely long. If you have no objection, what I'd like to do, Senator Mathews, is I would like to just have you explain just a brief explanation of both of your bills, and then let's get the testifiers up here. On the testifiers, I would ask you, as you come up, if you're scheduled to testify on both bills, if you could make your testimony for both bills. Otherwise, we are most certainly going to run out of time. And I see that all but one of the testifiers looks like is on both lists. So, Senator Mathews, to your bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Looks like my notes I probably left up there at the desk, but I've been around this bill for long enough that I think we can just go with it here. Mr. Chair, I have Senate File 350, which is the full nuclear moratorium repeal, as well as Senate File 468, which is a partial moratorium repeal for units sized up to 300 megawatts. I've been a long supporter of repealing in some fashion the nuclear moratorium in the state of Minnesota. I think the need to accomplish that has even gotten greater in the last couple of years with the 2040 bill that is in place. We need clean, reliable baseload generation as our source of generation here in the state. And frankly, I don't want the state of Minnesota to box itself in, limiting ourselves to only a few forms of generation that meet the standard while leaving out the best and most reliable baseload forms of energy. So we're here bringing these bills again. These are not much of a surprise to any of the committee members and probably to many of the testifiers in the audience if you've been around this committee for any length of time. This has been an issue that we have pushed for. I do want to come out initially, Mr. Chair, to talk about I've been having some very good and very strong communications with the Prairie Island Indian community. And I know that that is important to the co-chair and to many of the members that are on this committee. I have told them it's my intent to keep working with them. We've been passing some ideas around. They have a process that they're trying to work through, and those conversations are going to continue to move forward. I guess I should probably amend my bills, both of these bills, Mr. Chair, then before we go to the testifiers, if you think that's the way we should do this.
Senator Mathews, if that's the way you want to proceed, then we can go ahead. You have the A4 amendment, I believe.
Mr. Chair, with the Senate File 468, I have the A4 amendment. Both of these amendments will be identical, Mr. Chair. I can describe them. It will be adding to both of these bills in discussion with the Prairie Island community how this would work in trying to see if we can come to some kind of an agreement. And it sounds like one of the concerns is if anything additional would end up going on the grounds where the current facilities already are on their tribal lands down there in the Prairie Island area. So I believe it's A4 with both amendments. Is that correct, Council? The A4 for Senate File 468 will be that any new nuclear generation facility that's built under this new law change may not store nuclear waste within 10 miles of the community, and no new generation can be built on or within 10 miles of the community. They're going to be identical amendments to both of the bills, so I'll move the A4 amendment first to Senate File 468.
Thank you, Senator Mathews. Any discussion? Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I would urge members to vote yes on the amendment. I just want to thank you, Senator Mathews, for the commentary about Prairie Island. I appreciate the spirit of working together, and with that, I'll be voting yes on the amendment for both bills. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mathews.
Thank you, Senator Friends. Is there any other? Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question. Was the amendment, the A4, developed in collaboration with the Prairie Island Indian community?
Mr. Chair and Senator McEwen, yes, it was discussed as I was talking with them in my office last week. They're going to be bringing the ideas to their tribal council before they make any new decision on their public stance on it. But we had a very good conversation, and they seemed fine with adding the amendment to the bill at this point. And they can come when they come and testify, and I believe they're going to make reference to these amendments as well.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of moving the A4 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
you,
A4 is
Mr.
adopted.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Mathews.
Chair. I will move the A4 amendment to Senate File 350. They
Thank you, Senator
are
Mathews.
identical language being added to both bills.
Okay, thank you, Senator Mathews. Same bill. Any questions? Seeing none, Senator Mathews moves the A4 amendment to Senate File 350. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries and the A4 is adopted. Senator Mathews, do you have anything else to say before we go to testifiers?
Mr. Chair, I think in the interest of time, I'm happy to turn it over to our testifiers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to call three together. We've got Jenny Gulmack, Joel Johnson, and Eric Meyer. If you'd come forward and testify, and even though I hate to say this because I hate cutting people off, I ask you to be brief because we're not going to make it. So go ahead.
Absolutely,
And
Mr.
when
Chair.
you go, please state your name before you start.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Jenny Glumack, Director of Government Affairs for the Minnesota Rural Electric Association. I am here actually today on behalf of the newly formed Minnesota Nuclear Energy Alliance. The Minnesota Nuclear Energy Alliance is comprised of a broad coalition of utilities, labor unions, business, agriculture, environmental organizations, and nonprofit energy organizations. You'll see from the letter that you should have on your desks. We all share a commitment to ensuring a reliable, affordable, safe, and carbon-free energy future, and believe meeting all four of these goals will require nuclear energy. The Minnesota Nuclear Energy Alliance has one goal: to repeal the 30-year-old nuclear moratorium. We thank Senator Mathews for bringing forth a bipartisan bill to achieve this goal. And this coalition came together really fast, like within the last 2 weeks. We already have 28 organizations signed on, and just in the last 48 hours, it's become almost 35 organizations. So you'll see that this is very important to these organizations to move this bill this year. Minnesota maintains the strictest nuclear ban in the nation by prohibiting all new nuclear reactor construction. Lifting the moratorium would allow stakeholders to have a productive conversation about how advanced nuclear technology could contribute to the state's clean energy future. As our CEO, Derek Moe, was quoted on Friday in the Star Tribune saying nuclear is the single biggest answer to a question about how to meet all these challenges and get carbon-free and 24/7 reliability. Finally, the Minnesota Nuclear Energy Alliance is sensitive to the impact of the repeal of the nuclear moratorium could have on the Prairie Island community, and everyone in our alliance is ready to have those conversations. Thank you. And I cut my by like.
Thank you, and we will be holding questions till the end, so if you want to remain around. The next on the list is Mr. Johnson, and if Aaron Clems can come up, and Eric Meyer will be next, but if Aaron Clems could come up and be ready. Thanks. Mr. Johnson, please state your name.
Thank you, Chair Green, State Council, which represents over 15,000 electrical workers in the state, including thousands who have worked safely at the Monticello and Prairie Island nuclear power plants for the past 50-plus years. I'm also here on behalf of the other trades as well who get work at the plants on a regular basis. And thank you, Senator Mathews, for again bringing this forward. We were chatting a little bit before, wondering how long he's actually been doing this, and I applaud your persistence for this. The IBEW agrees that it's long past time to lift the moratorium on utilities from even considering a nuclear power plant. It's widely accepted that demand over the next decade is going to skyrocket between electric vehicles, AI, streaming, internet retail, electrical heat pumps for heating and cooling. We're going to be relying on the electrical grid as one of the primary drivers of our economy. It's important that we get this right. When you add in the closures of the state's largest power plants over the last decade, it's clear we're going to need some type of new, of full-time, fully dispatchable baseload energy to maintain balance on the grid. Energy storage coupled with wind and solar, carbon capture, hydrogen, large hydro, they're all possibilities, but still far from sure things. If we're going to reach our carbon-free goals by 2040, we need to start figuring out now how we're going to meet it. Lifting the moratorium isn't a guarantee that a nuclear power plant will be built in the state. All it does, it only means that the PUC can consider nuclear power and determine if it's in the best interest of the state's residents to build one. The jobs provided at Monticello and Prairie Island are some of the best jobs there are, and certainly within the energy industry. The jobs at the plant are well paid and stable, the facilities are safe, and the work is rewarding. There's also thousands of hours of work for the other trades during regular maintenance shutdowns and repairs. There's some urgency to this as well. Planning for a new plant, working through the environmental issues and review, siting, arranging for financing and construction can take years for a conventional power plant. For a nuclear plant, it takes even longer, and there is some question whether we could even get a plant built before 2040. So I urge you to vote to lift the moratorium. This is an important issue and one we don't have time to ignore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We're going to move right along. Eric Myers next, and Aaron Clems, and after that, Lindsay Potter.
Good afternoon, Chair Green and members of the committee. It's great to be back and have the opportunity to testify again. I'm Eric Meyer, founder and director of the Minnesota environmental nonprofit Generation Atomic. Over the past few years, we've talked to thousands of Minnesotans about nuclear energy at places like the State Fair and Pride festivals, and we've put together this coalition of labor, environmental, and business communities that is now proud to join this larger Minnesota Nuclear Energy Alliance and push for lifting the 30-year-old ban on new nuclear in our great state. I won't tell you nuclear energy is our most reliable carbon-free energy source. You already know that. I won't recite how nuclear generation requires less land and mining than solar farms and wind turbines. You've heard those numbers as well. And I won't remind you that our neighbors to the north in Ontario burned their last load of coal in 2014, a decade ago, and achieved the fastest greenhouse gas reduction in North American history by going from coal to nuclear. Or that Ontario is currently doubling down and building advanced reactors. I mentioned that the last time I testified. I think most of you already know that Xcel's tritium leak, while a PR disaster, presented no danger to the public. You'd have to drink 8 undiluted gallons directly from the leak to match the radiation dose we get from a standard chest X-ray. You may hear from other folks testifying today concerns about the spent fuel, which is a burden on local communities and is hazardous, but thankfully not dangerous, thanks to the incredibly robust containers we put it in. Here's me kissing one of these casts to prove that point, and I'm happy to report that my Geiger counter was clicking less than it does when I put it on this vintage Fiestaware plate right here. But I will say this, Minnesota's choice isn't about technology, it's about legacy. 7 coal plants will shutter by 2040. Power demand will probably triple. We can either cling to a ban written when dial-up internet was cutting-edge technology, or we can open our minds and embrace the generational opportunity that lies before us. I think SF50 really does that by just a clean lift. SF468, I think, attempts to, but that arbitrary limit does exclude some of our most promising designs that are being built elsewhere in the country or were recently built. So right now, billions in federal funding and private investment are flowing into nuclear projects across the country, and states are competing to attract these projects. Wisconsin, Montana, Illinois, Connecticut, Kentucky, and West Virginia have all passed bills to allow new nuclear in their states. Utah, just on Monday, established a consortium to develop and deploy new reactors. Oregon, California, and Rhode Island are also currently looking at lifting their bans on new nuclear. Meanwhile, shuttered plants are being restarted in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and as of 2 weeks ago, Iowa. Minnesota can either lift the ban to attract these investments, or we can watch as other states secure the jobs, tax revenue, and reliable clean energy that could have been ours. But hesitation has a cost. Federal dollars and private capital aren't waiting. Every state that lifts its ban becomes a magnet for this investment. Every delay makes Minnesota a spectator in our own energy story. Let's not let 2040 be the winter we tell our kids and grandkids we knew what to do, we just didn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Then it'll be Aaron Clems, and then Lindsay Potter, and after her, Leona Goose, and they'll both be remote. So Mr. Clems, go ahead.
Thank you. Chair Mathews, Chair Frentz, members of the committee, my name is Aaron Clems. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, or MCEA, which is a nonprofit public interest law firm and advocacy organization with a 50-year history of defending Minnesota's environment and the health of its people. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. MCEA is not taking a position currently on SF 350 or SF 468, but I wanted to offer some context to the committee as it considers these bills. First, I was really pleased to hear Senator Mathews talking about his engagement with the Prairie Island Indian community, because listening to the voices of communities affected by existing nuclear facilities and waste storage is really important. The nuclear moratorium was part of a 1994 deal to address waste storage at the 2 existing nuclear power plants in Minnesota. So listening to and honoring the perspectives of the sovereign nations and communities affected by that agreement should be a top priority, and I was glad to hear that it is. Second, we should not allow debate about nuclear power to distract us from the task at hand. There is a clear need for a rapid transition away from fossil fuels to carbon-free sources of electricity. The evidence of the damage that climate change is doing to our communities is growing every day. And we have solutions that are being implemented right now. Wind, solar, and battery storage are being rapidly deployed by Minnesota utilities to meet the carbon-free goals established by this legislature, and that work must continue and accelerate. Nuclear energy is a carbon-free source of electricity at the point of generation, but the same problems that have dogged this form of electrical generation for decades remain. There is still no permanent solution to nuclear waste, despite decades of effort. Nuclear remains one of the most expensive sources of new electricity. Building new nuclear power plants takes a very long time, and there are no existing proposals to build a new nuclear plant in Minnesota. The only new nuclear reactors completed in the past 2 decades in the United States are the Vogtle 3 and 4 units in Georgia. They ultimately cost $35 billion, more than double their original estimate. Cost overruns drove Westinghouse Electric, the manufacturer, into bankruptcy. It took 15 years to build Vogtle 3 and 4. The urgent need to respond to the climate crisis does not afford us years of delay to respond. That work needs to be happening today, and it is. Lastly, the news yesterday about DeepSeek, the Chinese AI model, which claims far lower electricity demands, is a good example of why speculating on data center loads and demand in the future is a bad idea. The announcement of a lower electricity AI model sent utility stocks tumbling by 20% or more yesterday. We still don't know what electricity demand is coming, and this news is a good example of the uncertainty that we face. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Clems. Next up, we have 2 remote, Lindsay Potter and Leona Goose, and I've just been informed that if we don't step it up, we are going to run out of time. I expect that we will be closing this committee and dealing with these bills. So in the interest of not shutting anybody out unless they can give us more time, I'm going to ask you to please be as brief as possible. So, Ms. Potter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name is Lindsay Potter. I'm here today in opposition to SF 350 and SF 468 on behalf of Nuke Watch and the Coalition for a Nuclear-Free Mississippi River. In an attempt to keep things brief, I will say I was going to second the previous speaker's notes on the cost overruns and time that it takes to build the only conventional new reactors that have been attempted to be built in this country in the last 15 years. I will also note that oftentimes when there are cost overruns, those are handled handed on to the ratepayer, as in the case with the failed Tyrone Energy Park, a nuclear project planned by Northern States Power that was canceled in 1979 when NSP passed on $80 million in losses to ratepayers despite generating no electricity. I will also point out that in the failure of the 2 Westinghouse reactors at Virgil C. Summer attempted to be built down in South Carolina, that was a $9 billion cost passed on to ratepayers that generated no electricity. In the case of SMRs, I'd like to say that on page 155 of Excel's current integrated resource plan, which is before the Minnesota PUC right now, Excel's own modeling Encompass software did not select for an SMR when given the option to select for an SMR as a future energy source. This proves that even Excel's own modeling software cannot justify the huge cost of building new nuclear infrastructure, even with technologies that are advertised as smaller and easier to construct. Likewise, the only SMR project approved in the United States has already been canceled due to cost overruns. NuScale and utility partner UAMPS agreed to build a dozen 77-megawatt reactors at the Idaho National Laboratory to begin delivering electricity in 2029, but the cost per megawatt hour rose 53% and subscribers pulled out. The deal was canceled despite having received $232 million in taxpayer handouts. SMRs in China, Russia, and Argentina are also over budget and far over their schedules for completion, some of them 300% over budget and taking as long as 12 to 13 years to construct. A 2020 Lazard study estimated that the levelized cost of energy for nuclear power is nearly 4 times the highest cost estimates of wind and utility scale solar. And on that point, I will just note that also on the DOC's current, the Department of Commerce, that is, in Minnesota's current docket for the IRP, they write that just continuing the operating licenses for Excel's current reactors displaces generation from wind and solar. So adding new reactors, I ask you, would displace what generation? It may displace generation from renewable sources. Lastly, I want to say that our group has been closely following the tritium leak from the Monticello nuclear reactor in 2022. And though there's science out there that I would say disagrees with Mr. Meyer's testimony that the tritium was safe to drink, I want to note especially that Excel was not a trusted and transparent partner. And that's what I think we need to look at closely here, whatever science on tritium you subscribe to. Excel took 4 months to notify the public of the leak, during which time they were applying for a 20-year license extension. I've been through the troves of information that Excel and the NRC have put out on this, including their final environmental impact statement. There is data missing. There is data that is inconsistent. The vast majority of Excel's well tests that they claim to have taken sampling the tritium, and the vast majority of their samples from the river, which is drinking water for 20 million people, have not been published. And though Excel writes in their own document—
Ms. Potter, I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. Can you wrap it up, please?
Yes, I would just say that though Excel writes in their own documents that the vast majority of the radioactive water that reached the Mississippi River did so in September, the NRC did not even consider the month of September in its environmental impact statement for running Monticello. So I don't think either of those organizations are doing a proper job being transparent with the public and truly reflecting the public health hazards or the environmental hazards of operating a nuclear reactor. So I can't trust them to do so with new nuclear infrastructure in the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Potter. Next is Leona Goose, and then if George Crocker, Rick Evans, and Blake Johnson can come up and be ready to go. Thank you. Ms. Goose?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to testify. So Bujun and Danaway Magadadug. Hello, my relatives. My name is Leanne Goose, and I work within the Rise and Repair Alliance as a co-facilitator and organizer. I am speaking today as a Minnesota citizen, a tribal member, and a mother. I am here to ask that you all energy is not a safe or responsible solution for our energy future, and I urge you to consider the following critical points. First, nuclear energy generates toxic radioactive byproducts that can remain hazardous for generations. In considering lifting the nuclear moratorium,
we are considering burdening future generations with a legacy of contamination. This is not a mess we want to leave behind for our children to deal with. Moreover, nuclear energy is prohibitively expensive. The cost of constructing and maintaining nuclear power plants are astronomical, and these plants carry a massive environmental footprint. Additionally, uranium mining, which is the foundation of nuclear power, has already had devastating effects on indigenous lands across the United States. Many sacred spaces and reservations have been turned into sacrifice zones where the land, water, and health of communities are permanently harmed. This is an injustice we cannot ignore. Also, the threat of accidents such as meltdowns is not something we can ignore, especially with climate change intensifying natural disasters. Potential for catastrophic events like Chernobyl or Fukushima is all too real. I urge you to listen to the voices of Minnesota's communities, especially the sovereign nation, Prairie Island Indian community, who are directly impacted by the existing nuclear facilities and waste storage. We cannot afford to disregard the long-term risks posed by nuclear energy, from toxic radioactive waste to the harmful impact of uranium mining on indigenous lands. Now is not the time to invest in an energy system that can create catastrophic events. Instead, we should focus on renewable energy alternatives that protect both our communities and the environment. I ask you as leaders to leave nuclear in the past where it belongs and to not include it as part of our future energy strategy. Miigwech Bizendawi, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Goose. Next up is Mr. Crocker. If you can go ahead and start.
Thank you, chairs, senators. My name is George Crocker. I'm the executive director of the North American Water Office, which is a nonprofit that has been dealing with the issues of energy and environmental justice since its inception in 1982. I'm very appreciative of being here to testify, in that I am probably as responsible as anyone for the fact that Minnesota has a moratorium on nuclear power, and for good reason, many of which have already been articulated. But there's new information now that we did not have in 1994. And that new information is truly horrifying. The latency period for cancers is about 20 years. In 1994, Prairie Island had only been online for 20 years. We didn't know. Now we know. Nuclear power is a murderous machine. You're killing your own constituents. Now, the data comes from the Centers of Disease Control. It's reputable data, and it's analyzed by reputable people, epidemiologists with business degrees and degrees in public health, master's degrees. And that data tells us that at Monticello and at Prairie Island, every month, you're killing 3 to 4 people every month. Think what would happen if you had headlines in your paper, serial killer on the loose, cops don't care. That's what's going on. You don't care. You talk about we need no more nuclear power. You don't even know how to say nuclear. If this committee and this Senate and this legislature goes ahead and lifts the moratorium and endorses more nuclear power in Minnesota while we're already killing our own, may you all go to hell. Now, there is another way to provide energy services. I wrote a book about it. You would be well advised to read this and learn. It's called About Power:
how to democratize electricity now. We don't need nuclear power to meet our energy needs any more than we need a bullet in the head to stay healthy.
Mr. Crocker, I'm afraid we're
I'm
going to have to
done.
move on. Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Rick Evans with Xcel Energy. As you all know, Xcel Energy is the only company that operates 2 nuclear power plants in the state. Over the years of operating the Prairie Island nuclear plant, we have come to understand the impact that that plant has on the Prairie Island Indian community, which is right next door to the plant. Xcel believes that nuclear power should be one of the options as we continue the energy transition, but our support for lifting the moratorium is dependent on the full participation of the Prairie Island Indian community as a critical stakeholder in the discussion. We look forward to working with the Prairie Island Indian community and the legislature to ensure that the tribal issues are addressed. That concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you for being brief. That is going to help us. Next, we have Blake Johnson, and then on deck will be Rachel Stuckey and Phil Adam.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Blake Johnson. I'm the Government Relations Representative for the Prairie Island Indian community. I am also a tribal member. My Dakota name is Hokshira Mazawambari, which means Iron Eagle Boy. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify before the committee. My comments today will sound similar to the comments that I made last week before this committee. The repeal of the nuclear moratorium is an issue incredibly important to our tribe, given the history of our tribe relative to the Prairie Island nuclear generating plant. The Prairie Island Indian community is a federally recognized tribe in Minnesota whose reservation is located on an island, Prairie Island, on the Mississippi River. Our reservation sits less than 700 yards from the plant and over 1,000 tons of nuclear waste generated from the plant. We are the closest community, native or non-native, in the nation to a nuclear plant and stored nuclear waste. As you recall from my previous testimony, both the nuclear plant and the waste were sited next to the tribe without our consultation and our consent. When the plant was constructed in the early 1970s, Prairie Island had just received electricity and running water a couple years earlier. Economic opportunity for our tribal members was almost entirely non-existent. Members alive at that time, including my father, slept in tents and slogged through the mud to the end of the reservation to catch a school bus. Suffice to say that our tribe at that time did not have the means or the wherewithal to engage with the PUC, lobby the legislature, and bring legal action. As a result, the plant was simply put up next to us. Then in the mid-1990s, when it became clear that there was nowhere for the spent nuclear waste to go, the PUC and legislature authorized the storage of spent fuel next to our tribe, despite our strident opposition. The result, as well as we all know, was that the spent nuclear fuel was simply put next to us. Tribal members have lived next to spent nuclear waste for 30 years and next to a nuclear generating plant for 50 years. There are several generations of tribal members who have never known their ancestral lands without either of these things. There are still many tribal members who can recall the state forcing the waste on us. I tell you this because additional baseload energy is needed for the grid that is carbon-free, new nuclear energy has become the belle of the ball. And we understand why. The vast majority of the state has enjoyed an incredible amount of baseload energy without the accompanying pollution for the last 50 years. And the vast majority of the state has likely not noticed the cost. We have. We've noticed the cost because it's awfully hard to ignore it when not once, but twice in our history, we've been forced to live next to a nuclear plant or spent nuclear waste. If this were your community's history, I would imagine you'd be hearing from your constituents as a part of this discussion.
They might ask whether any new waste generated at a nuclear plant will end up on the pad that's already authorized for it's next door to your community. They might ask, what is the risk of an accident or an emergency is to their community? They might contemplate a scenario where they leave for work but don't get to come home due to a radiation leak. And by the way, this isn't totally hypothetical. There has been a small leak back in October of 1979. They might contemplate situations where economic engine of their community is no longer viable due to an emergency and wonder where the resources would come from to sustain healthcare, housing, and public safety for their neighbors. While this isn't a theoretical scenario for the rest of the state, this is not for us. And these are exactly the things that weigh on our tribal members' minds as a result of being forced to live with it every day. With this in mind, Prairie Island cannot support Senate File 305 and 468 today. That said, we appreciate the engagement and productive discussions with Senator Mathews over the past several days. We also appreciate the engagement with Senator Frentz and all the committee members on this issue. It is clear to us in our tribal council that folks would like to work with us. That is always our goal too. We're just not at that point as further discussion with tribal council and community engagement must first take place on how we proceed on this important issue. We look forward to the continued discussion with all interested parties as we move forward, and we'd like to thank you for the time to come up and speak on this important issue. Wopidatanka.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Ms. Stuckey, and then Philip Adam, and after that would be Margaret Levin.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Rachel Stuckey, Executive Director of the Minnesota Conservative Energy Forum. We'd like to first thank Chair Mathews for bringing forward this important bill. Chair Mathews and other supporters have already covered why we believe repealing the moratorium is so important. So I'll just say that we have an exciting opportunity for genuine bipartisan collaboration as we work toward a cleaner grid. The success of last year's energy permitting reform demonstrated what's possible when a lot of stakeholders who don't always agree on issues come together. And right now we're seeing that, as we heard from the Alliance, are coming together to repeal the nuclear moratorium. With continued collaboration with the tribes across sectors and party lines and access to all available tools and technologies, we can create a clean energy future that works for every community in our state. We urge your support of the bill and look forward to continuing to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stuckey. I would make an announcement. We're not going to finish our list here on time. We have been told that we can go till 2:45. But we're still going to have to start making things go a little quicker. So I apologize in advance for the fact that I'm probably going to have to stop you if you get too long. So Mr. Adam, go ahead.
3 minutes, okay? Hi, I'm Philip Adam, resident of Plymouth for 40 years, retired engineer who worked in air conditioning at Daikin Applied for 34, and I'm well versed in energy system analysis. I never looked at my product by itself, but almost always as to how it affected the entire building. My concern with the repeal of the nuclear moratorium is about water scarcity, and I believe the committee needs to consider the potential risk that nuclear power plants and the subsequent users of them, including data centers, have upon our water resources. Minnesota is experiencing the consequences of climate change, including a stressing of our water resources. One of the worst droughts Minnesota has ever had so far was in 2021, enough so that it was featured in an article in the New York Times. The article was largely about agriculture, but it belies the point that we do not have infinite water, and Minnesota needs to be very mindful about how it utilizes its water resources, including for energy production and consumption. As one other example, I'll note that France often has to lower their output during summer months from their nuclear plants because the cooling water is too hot. So I often refer to nuclear plants as tea kettles. Like coal plants, they just boil water.
and about 1/3 of it goes on, the power goes on to the electric grid, 2/3 has to be removed as waste heat. And how do we do it? We use water. And for 2,700 megawatts, as these data centers are proposed, that would require about 11 billion gallons of water per year on average, 11 billion gallons. Then there's the data centers. Think of your laptop. And basically, all the energy in that battery goes out as heat. And likewise with the data center, 2,700 megawatts of heat is what they'll have to get rid of. And typically, the lower the initial cost of the data center, the higher the water requirement.
Please? Can you wrap it up?
Okay, it's 11 billion, data centers will also require 11 billion gallons. Section 103G 265 of the Minnesota statute says, the commissioner shall develop and manage water resources to assure an adequate supply to meet long-range seasonal requirements for domestic municipal use. I just want the committee, as part of the, if they repeal the moratorium, insist that water usage be part of their analysis. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and I will say that, you know, this bill is not about the data center. This is about the certificate of need. So for the future testifiers, we have Margaret Levin, Veta Kranitz, and Tina Clark on deck. Ms. Levin, state your name, please.
Thank you, Chair and members, for the opportunity to testify. My name is Margaret Levin. I'm the State Director of Sierra Club's Minnesota North Star chapter. We represent 50,000 members and supporters working to help our state's communities flourish through environmental protection. We appreciate being able to speak today in opposition to Senate Files 350 and 468. We strongly oppose lifting the moratorium on new nuclear plants. As other testifiers have shared, this form of power continues to pose grave risks, negatively impacts environmental justice communities, harms water resources, and leaves a toxic legacy that will burden future generations. As you know, the moratorium has been law for 25 years. It continues to be a sensible protection for issues for which we do not have a solution. One of our top concerns is safety, both for reactor operations and the unsolved problem of long-term storage of high-level waste. As other testifiers have highlighted, nuclear is also an environmental justice issue, causing contamination throughout its life cycle, especially for low-income and indigenous communities living near uranium mines, mills, plants, and waste storage facilities. And I wish to underscore the concerns shared by Mr. Johnson of the Prairie Island Indian community. I'll echo and not repeat in detail the concerns that have already been shared about cost, about the opportunity cost of investing in nuclear instead of clean energy, and about the time required to add new nuclear when we are under a short time frame to produce carbon-free energy to address the climate crisis. Every dollar spent on nuclear is one less that can be spent on truly safe, affordable, and renewable energy sources. We also need to first address the many unanswered questions surrounding unproven technologies such as small modular reactors. We wish to also state our opposition to allowing new hydropower to count as clean energy because of its negative environmental and human costs. Similar to nuclear, it is an environmental justice issue.
Ms. Levin, can you wrap it up, please?
Yes. So we ask that with respect to hydro, you consider the harmful effects that dams have already had on northern indigenous communities, such as First Nations that have been impacted by Manitoba Hydro. So in closing, we ask that you vote no on the bills that are before you today.
Thank you. Then up next is Ms. Kanitz, then it's Tina Clark, Charles Sutton, and Michelle Benson, if you could all be ready. So, Ms. Kanitz, please go ahead. State your name.
Thank you. I'm Vita Konitz. I am co-director of the DFL Environmental Caucus. I'm also a retired science teacher after 4 decades and concerned mom and grandma. I thank you, Chair Green, and members of the committee for hearing my testimony. I was in attendance last week when you all heard testimony regarding data centers and nuclear power, and they were linked together. And it was very surprising to me to hear nuclear power described as zero carbon, so emitting, because my background tells me otherwise. Mark Jacobson recently testified to the U.S. House of Representatives, and in comparing emissions said you have to look at the total
life cycle of an energy source. And nuclear really uses a lot of, or emits a lot of carbon through its construction, which uses large amounts of concrete and metal, decommissioning, fuel processing, uranium mining and enrichment. All of these rely heavily on fossil fuels, giving it a carbon footprint of 78 to 178 grams per CO2 per kilowatt hour, not zero. There's also the issue that it takes 10 to 22 years for nuclear to come online relative to 1 to 5 for wind or solar. Those are extra years that we simply cannot afford to waste. We'd be much better off, as already had been suggested, to ramp up and invest in much cheaper renewable energy sources such wind and solar and battery storage. Also, here's something that you haven't, I think, considered. During that 10 to 22 year period that we're waiting for those plants to come online, we will continue to see premature deaths due to the air pollution caused by burning fossil fuels. Yes, I would like to wrap up by, again, speaking to the waste issue. This waste needs to be stored for 200,000 years or more. I want you all to please ask yourself, if you want to approve a nuclear power plant in Minnesota, if that waste is transported past your house, or if that facility is near your residence. The people of Prairie Island have said no. The people of Nevada said no. Unless you want this waste passing by and stored near your home, you should also say no to lifting the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And then we have Tina Clark, Charles Sutton, and Michelle Benson. If you could all come up, please. Thanks. I don't see Ms. Clark, so we will go to Mr. Sutton.
Chair Green, members of the committee, I'll be really brief since I know we're running short on time. Just want to thank the committee for hearing this bill. Thank Senator Mathews for his continued work on it. I represent the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49, and North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters. I think just to be brief, we would really echo the comments made by Joel Johnson with the IBW. This is an important technology for that pays, has good, safe jobs for our members, both in construction and, of course, for the IBW folks in operations, and is going to be important for meeting our clean energy targets. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Mathews, members of the committee. My name is Michelle Benson. I'm Director of Energy Policy for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of Senate File 350 and Senate File 468. I will be brief. The 6,300 members of the Minnesota Chamber come from your district and across the state of Minnesota. They're prioritizing affordable, reliable, and cleaner energy, and we believe that lifting the nuclear moratorium moves us down that path. I testified last week on the need for energy in order to keep an innovation economy going. Senate File 350 would allow the most flexibility in choosing Minnesota's nuclear energy future, and we appreciate this flexibility being part of the conversation. Senate File 468 takes an alternative approach, but it does highlight that nuclear technology is emerging and has changed since 3 Mile Island, even since the technology of Fukushima. So members, as you consider these policies going forward, we would appreciate Senate File 350 being prioritized, but understand the conversation around Senate File 468 is important for this committee to consider. Okay. Thank you for prioritizing 24/7 electricity with zero carbon output by promoting these bills today. And thank you, Senator Mathews, for including the Prairie Island community in this conversation. We know that their voice will be important to the success of energy in the nuclear space. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Would anybody else from the audience choose to briefly testify on the bill? Seeing none, I would open it up for questions from the committee. Senator France.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mathews. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have a question, but I hope everyone agrees that this has been a positive conversation headed in the right direction. I just want to point out, we have tough choices to make in energy. We don't have a simple silver bullet, or we would already be firing it. So I am one who's interested in the partnership with Prairie Island, XL, and other stakeholders. We have to have an agreement, but we have to accept if there was an easy path, we would have already taken it. And the 100% by 2040 bill, which I appreciate the support that's been voiced today, requires the energy technologies to compete with each other on cost and reliability. And we have a question before us, and I appreciate Blake Johnson from Prairie Island recognizing this, which is if we think it is a clean energy source, if it emits less carbon, don't we have to consider it and reach a conclusion about how it competes in front of the PUC, in front of the permitting agencies, in front of the regulatory board? And for that reason, I'm open to the discussion on these bills and hope that we can find a path with Prairie Island on board. It will take that to get my yes vote, members. Appreciate that very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Any more, Senator Hoffman?
So, Mr. Chair, one of the things, you're at a dilemma here. Blake Johnson, absolutely. I'm supportive, but that has to come. Prairie Island needs to have this conversation first. And so I'm wondering, Mr. Chair and Senator Mathews, does it make sense? Because it would be nice to have Blake come back here and either, Blake and Excel, that relationship that's been built there. I just think the timing on this, the information has been good, but the timing on it just doesn't seem fitting for me. And so I think it would make sense for you to just lay these on the table until Blake comes back to us. It's just my suggestion to you. That way it's, then you bring it off the table when Blake Johnson has the report from his elders. And I personally, my name is on this, but I've said this to you, I will not do anything without the consent of the elders of the island. And so just to let you know that. So I would hope we don't take an action today, but rather we do something else to bring him back. Does that make sense?
Senator Mathews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman. My hope today was we had the two bills there, and we could easily have one vehicle move to the Senate floor and have one vehicle that's tabled here in this committee. And I've already said the next steps for me is to continue working towards getting that commitment with Prairie Island. Those conversations are going to continue. We've discussed about what their timeline is of what they're trying to do back with tribal council. Right now, for bills on the Senate floor, under the power sharing agreement, in order for something to be taken up on the Senate floor, it needs the agreement of both caucus leaders. At some point in the future, that power sharing agreement could go away, and then it's left up to the one leader. So there are lots of protections that are in place. This is not being rushed through to be pulling a fast vote on the Senate floor, anytime soon. But the hope was to try to get a vehicle out, have a vehicle here, keep working for an agreement, keep coming back with hopefully what a framework of an agreement would be to either pass out of this committee or use later. So that's my hope here today, and I'm open to any other questions that members have.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Green. I agree, continued conversation is warranted. I appreciate Mr. Johnson's continued commitment to talk with all of us and help us understand fully Prairie Island's experiences living so near both a power plant and spent fuel. I would also be interested in, I think it's important as we think about an investment that would be this large, what sort of federal partners we would have in this. And the Trump administration has vowed to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which had money in it to both study and potentially open additional nuclear plants. So without that money and with withholding of funds and freezing of funds for the CDC and the NIH, which would study the health impacts of things like this, I think I would be very concerned about moving forward right now. I hope we continue the conversation in this committee, but I would be a no vote to move it forward.
Okay, I don't have anybody else on the list, and so unless you want to respond to that, Senator Mathews. Okay, Senator Mathews, we're first going to take up Senate File 468, and as amended by the A4 amendment, and Senator Mathews moves that Senate File 468 be recommended to pass to the floor.
Mr. Chair, I ask for a roll call on this vote. And members, I'm asking you to vote no to send these two bills to the floor. We have just got done hearing from Prairie Island and Excel. I would suggest that the better path is to lay it over and that it sends a bad signal to take a vote on these bills. But if we must vote, we will have to do it on roll call, and we will have to have it on the record, and I will have to be a no vote on both. We would be lifting the moratorium in part or in full, and either one does not have the agreement that I think we need. So, Mr. Chair, I request a roll call on whichever bill you're voting on first.
Okay, a roll call has been requested, and.
Quickly respond to that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Mathews.
Mr. Chair and Senator Frantz, it's not my intention to be moving both bills to the floor. As I laid out, keeping all of our options open could be a vehicle that's on the floor as well as one that's staying in the committee. You know, I've talked about how this conversation would continue to look like for this committee, and I've given you my pledge on that the conversations with Prairie Island are going to continue in trying to get to an agreement for that. So your characterization wasn't quite accurate in that I'm only asking for it on one of the bills, but I think we need to have the options open for us, and I'm pledging to continue working with Prairie Island, hoping to come to an agreement.
Senator Frantz.
Thank you, Senator Mathews. I know you're an honorable man. What I'm saying is that either one of these bills carries with it at this moment a lifting of all or part of the nuclear moratorium. I am not ready to vote yes on that without the agreement first. As for a vehicle bill, count me in for a discussion of an innocuous, nonpartisan vehicle bill sometime in the near future to send to the floor. That I think makes some sense, but I'll have to be a no on either one of these bills. And again, if we take a vote, we'll be creating a Senate position. I believe will be defeated. And I'm not sure that's the best move for those that want to see these bills move forward. So I would propose laying them over, but ready to vote if need be. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Mathews?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Then Mathews moves Senate File 468 as amended to be recommended to be passed and sent to the floor. Clerk will take the roll.
Co-Chair Frantz?
No.
Co-Chair Mathews?
Aye.
Vice Chair Green?
Yes.
Vice Chair Zhang?
No.
Senator Lucero?
Yes.
Senator Drazkowski?
Yes.
Senator Port?
No.
Senator Hoffman?
No.
Senator Weber?
Yes.
Senator Dibble?
No.
Senator Rarick?
Yes.
Senator Klein?
No.
Senator McEwen?
No.
Senator Gruenhagen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, there being 7 ayes and 7 noes, tie vote, the motion does not pass, and title not agreed to. Did not prevail. Senator Mathews.
Mr. Chair, I still am going to ask that you lay over Senate File 350 for possible inclusion. Nothing has changed on my part as far as what I am committed to do in working on this issue, on working with the stakeholders, on working with other members of the committee. And so I'd ask you to lay over Senate File 350. And I want to thank all of the members and all of the testifiers here for the discussion. As I've just briefly in closing, members, we're getting closer to 2040 with each passing year. I've told this to you, Mr. Chair, and time is very important to get this done as soon as possible to have all of the tools in the toolbox. And other states are looking at and opening their nuclear investments. Minnesota will need to be in the picture before being completely left behind. So I thank everyone for the discussion, and I would ask you, Mr. Chair, to lay over Senate File 350 for possible inclusion.
As amended, okay.
As amended, thank you.
Senate File 350 is brought before the committee. Thank you, Senator Mathews, and bill will be laid over for as amended, will be laid over for possible inclusion. And with that, we are adjourned.